doing too much. It's not working. Welcome to another life-giving episode of Beyond Chronic Burnout, where we're diving into the critical role that community and connection play in preventing burnout, especially for neurodivergent individuals. I'm your host, Carol Jean Whittington, and today we have a very special guest, Bridgette Hamstead, a powerhouse neurodiversity consultant, advocate, and the executive director of Fish in a Tree, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting neurodivergent individuals. Bridgette brings not only professional expertise, but also personal experience. Diagnosed as autistic in her late 30s, Bridgette had already been navigating severe burnout, which took a toll on her already. Bridgette brings not only professional expertise, but also personal experience. Diagnosed as autistic in her late 30s, Bridgette had already been navigating severe burnout, which took a toll on her physical and mental health. Her journey didn't just stop at recovery. She transformed her challenges into something that became opportunities to help others, creating safe and supportive environments through her organization. Today, she's here to share her insights on managing energy, fostering connection, and creating inclusive spaces where neurodivergent people can truly thrive. This conversation is essential and part of our October theme, community and connection. Whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, the strategies we discuss will empower you to combat burnout in meaningful and sustainable ways. Let's dive in.
Step out of the shadows, feel the power rise, catch the spark inside you, let your spirit fly. Beyond the chronic burnout, Carol Jean's your guide. Find your steady rhythm, nice joy on the tide. Flourish forward, bright and bold. Leave the burnout far behind. In this journey, hearts unfold. Power's yours, seek and find.
Bridgette, welcome to Beyond Chronic Burnout. I am really excited to have you here sharing your burnout experience and all of the insights that you have for things that you've learned along the way, as well as sharing more about what community means for you and how you've created community and burnout supports within Fish in a Tree. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So Bridgette, this is usually where we like to start with the very personal part, because I think everyone has a different burnout experience, but it can also be similar. And sometimes we can hear someone else's explanation or description of their own stress and burnout experience, and it doesn't really land. It doesn't connect with us. And then we hear someone else, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I relate. That she's speaking my language. That person has just described what I've experienced in a way that speaks to my heart, and I understand it. So Bridgette, what has been your experience of burnout?
Sure. So I, as a late diagnosed person, I did not have a great understanding of my autism as autism. I definitely had an inner experience that I understood that I was different from other people, but didn't exactly know why or how. And so I knew that my internal experience was different from other people's internal experience. And so I kind of noticed maybe at the age of like 8, every 2 or 3 years, I would have some kind of major illness that had like a long lead up to being ill. And then I would be like majorly sick. That would just like require like total just laying in bed and staring into space for months to recover from. And but there would be like all these, it would never be like a classic presentation of like mononucleosis. Like it would be mono, but it would be like the weirdest presentation of it like ever, or I'd have like some kind of mystery illness that had a bunch of bizarre symptoms that were debilitating, but like nobody could diagnose it as anything. Or I'd be so sick that I couldn't even go to the doctor. Like as I got older and I was living alone, I wouldn't be able to like transport myself to a doctor. So I would have like no idea what was wrong with me and just like laid in bed and drank water and hoped I didn't die, and eventually would recover after a lot of rest, and just not doing anything. It would be like a full stop to my life, every 2 or 3 years, and it was kind of like clockwork, but like the ugliest clockwork you could you could think of. In college, I would sensory sensitivities started to turn into physical presentations as well. Like when the lights were too bright or the sounds were too loud, I would break out in hives like all over my body that would like travel from like one part of my body to another, and that became kind of a warning sign of like, you're about to have some kind of major illness that's gonna debilitate you. That was like in college and graduate school, that kind of all went on. But and then I also I would become like really accident prone. So sometimes it wasn't like a debilitating illness, it was like a debilitating accident that would result in an injury that would require being bedridden and just require rest and recovery. And so I would recover, but I wouldn't understand like this is burnout, which needs to be treated with rest and recovery and but that's what was happening. And it wasn't until my late 30s that I was identified as autistic. I had an ADHD diagnosis from maybe like early high school, but the autism identification was really gave me an understanding of like, I really am different from other people, and these things that are happening to me are related to that. And it gave me an understanding of those things were autistic burnout, and they were manifesting, and the only way I could let them manifest, because I didn't know what it was and couldn't facilitate what I needed to do. So it would just stop me from going any further until I rested. And so that's kind of historically been my experience with burnout, autistic burnout.
When was the point where, and I'm sure like so many of us, we finally get this identification, we get this word, this understanding of ourselves. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm autistic. There's a reason that I have experienced the world the way that I have and all of the things. And then we basically open up this whole new area of understanding where we're learning terms like masking and camouflaging and autistic burnout and co-occurring health conditions. When did you identify autistic burnout as the experience as you looked back at that and be able to really kind of correlate the two?
Probably when I met you.
Well, okay, that works.
I intellectually, I was identified autistic, and I started to gain a greater understanding of what that really meant. But I also had, 40, almost 40 years of lived experience up to that point of something. And then once I put a name to it, I'm like, oh, I actually know a lot about autism. And so having a lot of that clarified for me and connected for me, it was very easy to then connect all the dots and be like, okay, all of these things that were happening that I was understanding as bizarre and different and not like other people, I now understand that collectively all of that was, being autistic. And then when I met you, and because I knew what burnout was, you work too hard and you get burnout, or people talk about being burnout from like their job. And I intellectually understood what that was. But I think when I met you and started learning about your work and we started talking is probably when I made the connection of like, autistic burnout is a different thing than people are talking about when they talk about burnout in general. And then it wasn't too far of a jump from there to, I think, all of those times, 2 to 3 year periods, I think that was autistic burnout. And then I, went to confirm that, and I learned that other people, their presentations of their burnout, had been for a lot of people like kind of bizarre symptomology and kind of internal experiences that presented as external physicality, like hives and rashes and things. And so I think really that's when I started putting all that together, with the help of knowing you and learning from your work.
I love how you were able to identify, oh, it was these 2 to 3 year cycles starting around age 8. Because in my research, I've identified through the data and the interviews that the on-ramp begins between age 4 and 6. And that first burnout happens between age 6 and age 8.
Okay.
And what I love is that you were able to look at a consistent cycle of this. And so from the age of 8 to, let's just say, into your 30s, that's anywhere from 9 to 15 burnouts.
Yeah.
When we really put that into context. And the reason that I'm so passionate about the work that I do is because if we take that knowledge and that understanding now and we say, okay, if you've experienced somewhere between 9 and 15 burnouts in your lifetime so far, from the age of 8 till you realize what it was, and you're going to share some amazing insights that you have for how you manage your energy and burnout now. But how did that impact how you saw yourself? How did that impact the quality of your life? How did that impact how you showed up every day for yourself and the people that you cared about in your full authenticity and your personal power, right? That's the reason that I do what I do.
Yeah, I was pushed to kind of like push myself until a breaking point by my immediate family. That was kind of my mother is a workaholic, and that's all she knows, and she thinks everybody else should be a workaholic and that it's somehow virtuous. And so, there was definitely an external push towards burnout kind of my whole life, of like, if you're not excelling, you're failing kind of a mentality. And so I was constantly pushing myself and hearing messages of to push myself, and go and go and go and do as much as possible. If you're not using a full day to, produce as much as possible. And, I had a lot of hyper focus going on. And so I could produce, even more than other people during a day. And it was like, oh, well, you have this gift, and so you should be doing more than other people. And so it was just all everything every day until, you'd break down. And so now I do understand, like, as you were saying, there's definitely a cycle of like, yeah, well, if you go until you can't anymore, something has to stop you from going. And that's why it was manifested as like a physicality, that would put an end to me going and going and going.
Right. And I think our bodies are so very smart, and they are so very attuned to what it is that truly serves us. And sometimes it will say, it serves you to not feel good right now and to force you to stay in the bed so that you stop this constant all
at one
pushing.
point it was, I now know, misdiagnosed as bipolar, which I understand is pretty common experience, especially for women. And so my understanding of what was happening to me was through the lens of a vague understanding of what bipolar disorder is. And it didn't make total sense to me, but that's what I was given. So that's what I, went with. And so I started to try to understand those cycles as cycles of like depression and mania. And that because it was definitely accompanied by feelings of worthlessness, of like just like overwhelming worthlessness and not wanting to be part of this world. And I've had several suicide attempts in my life, and I did experience a lot of depression that felt like something more serious than what depression sounded like when people described it to me. Like, oh, I'm a little depressed. And I'm like, I'm not a little depressed. Like, and I don't want to just not wake up. Like, I feel worthless, and I feel like I should, there should be some pain associated with my demise, which should happen immediately and at all times, and so those intense feelings of worthlessness were like beyond depression, or beyond what I could understand was depression. And so with the greater understanding now of autistic burnout, that makes a whole lot more sense to me than, the various misdiagnoses of depression and major depression and bipolar disorder that I kind of like received. And I understand now that a lot of adult women who are late diagnosed have received a litany of misdiagnosis and mental health diagnosis throughout their lifetimes. So I get that now, but it was definitely something I was trying to understand and navigate in a very murky, uninformed, misinformed way throughout my life. And it was hard to communicate that, especially to my immediate family when I lived with them growing up. And then my partners, later, after I had moved out of my parents' home, that this is what I'm struggling with, and this is what I need, and this is, that I need help. Like I had no language for any of that, through all of that. It was something that was not, there was no way to explain it to anyone. And so it was very isolating. I was definitely like unto myself.
Oh, Bridgette, speaking to my heart over here so much. And I think you just spoke to so many other people as well, because that's one of the things that I notice most. And it's one of the reasons for this community conversation this month, is because when we don't have the language and we don't have the way to communicate to ourselves first, to identify and have a way to put what we're experiencing into a context or a framework, and then be able to explain it to other people, it feels very isolating, especially when we have a lot of misidentification and mislabeling and misunderstanding of how stress is showing up for us. Bridgette, thank you for sharing that, by the way. That meant a lot to me. Thank you. How have you now stepped into, with this new knowledge and understanding of yourself and your body and your brain, what things are you using or doing that are really serving you now to be in this beautiful energy place? Because you're dynamic, my friend. I mean, I don't know anybody else that has taken on the UN and said, hey, this is kind of what I really think. And I mean, you are my hero in so many respects, because you are so inclusive and very minded, in the mind and heart of how do we reach so many people that are not being included. But what is it that you do to help yourself with your energy now?
I appreciate you saying those things. Thank you. or probably my greatest motivation, is that I don't want anyone else to feel the way that I felt or to go through what I went through. And for all those people out there that are experiencing those things, I want to meet them where they are and hold their hand through their self-realization and into the light, And so I think that is constantly in my heart for the work that I do. But as far as preventing burnout, it's not only crucial for my personal well-being, but it's also essential for fostering a thriving and supportive community at Fishing Tree, which is the organization that I run, which is a physical community center here in New Orleans, but also has a virtual platform where we offer programming, on a national level. And we're also a consulting firm, so we advise other community organizations and government agencies and businesses on neuroaffirming practices and neuroaccessibility. So we kind of are everywhere at all times doing everything. But we definitely, community building is a big part of what we do. And we also support, other community building efforts across the country that are seeking to be neuro-inclusive. So it's a lot of work, a lot to be done, and the work is never done. But I really try to focus personally on kind of managing my own experience through this work. So, I definitely follow a spoons theory approach. I use the spoons theory to manage my energy levels and avoid burnout. I recognize personal limits and pacing my activities, which helps conserve energy throughout the day.
Hey, Beyond Chronic Burnout listeners, this October, we're focusing on something that's at the heart of living without burnout: community and connection. Whether you're a leader, neurodivergent, or simply trying to navigate the challenges of modern life, we have a full month of episodes packed with actionable strategies, inspiring conversations, and expert advice to help you combat burnout and stress through deeper, more meaningful connections. You'll hear from guests who share personal stories of overcoming burnout, insights on building neuro-inclusive workspaces, and tips for fostering emotional agility and resilience. We'll talk about the power of storytelling, how to create supportive environments, and the importance of setting boundaries and trusting yourself, all essential for both well-being and leadership. And if you haven't yet, grab our free daily stress relief tracker for leaders and managers to help you manage stress, support your team, and build a healthier work environment. This tool is available all month long, so don't miss out. Download it from our show notes or visit whittingtonwellbeing.com. Join us on this journey to reclaim your energy, foster deeper connections, and thrive beyond burnout.
Like I pad appointments. Whenever I put something on the calendar, I make sure that there's a 30 minutes leading up to it that's free and the 30 minutes after it that's free, just to kind of prepare and recover. This approach builds like a sustainable and supportive community, where individuals and that are members of our community and people that work with me, that are on my team, it's how we, respect each other's boundaries and our needs. And it's how I personally care for myself. Working from home is another kind of thing I've discovered that I need. Working from home provides the necessary flexibility to manage my energy levels pretty effectively, creating a personalized and truly comfortable work environment. Supports better focus, productivity, and personal well-being. At Fishing Tree, We encourage flexible work arrangements for our team members to accommodate their various diverse needs. And so that's very important to us. I was sharing with you earlier that I'm a Episcopalian Zen Buddhist. So I have a daily meditation practice rooted in Zen Buddhism, which plays a crucial role in managing stress and preventing burnout for me. Mindfulness and meditation kind of maintain my mental clarity, my emotional balance, my overall health. Integrating mindfulness practices into like our community programs at Fish and a Tree fosters like a calm and supportive atmosphere kind of for everyone. And then I also, as far as like scheduling and like a daily routine, I start my mornings slowly. I have a slow morning routine. I wake up at 8, in the morning, and I enjoy a cappuccino, and I have a morning daily meditation before I begin work, like at 10. And so it's a very slow morning. There's no rushing, and it kind of sets a positive tone for the day. This routine helps, preserve my energy and prevent burnout. And, I would encourage others to find their own morning routines that do for them, what this does for me, be it slow or whatever pace suits you. And then I, throughout the day, I practice mindful scheduling. So such as not scheduling meetings before 11 a.m., to make sure that I have a stress-free start to the day, setting boundaries around work hours and meeting times contributes to better energy management and reduces, the further risk of burnout. And then within our team, respecting these boundaries within, the work that we do to put Fish and Tree on as a community and to be supportive and understanding, of each other's limits and boundaries is really important. We have core business hours. So we're kind of on call to each other between like 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. But other than that, you have to kind of ask permission from, the team member that you want to interact with, like, hey, I know it's 4. Do you have spoons for a conversation? And sometimes, people say yes, and sometimes they say no, and you have to accept whatever that answer is. And so we really try to promote mindfulness within the team and to help our team members avoid burnout, as much as possible. And we share the load. I delegate tasks, and we really talk about, here's the project at hand. What can we each do that makes sure that nobody has a majority of the load of the project, and how can we support each other? So it's a very like communal, working environment that we have at Fish and a Tree.
I love that so much. And that's one of the things that we did here in Whittington Wellbeing is when I brought the team together and I said, okay, this is basically our research project. What is it for a team of fully neurodivergent folks to work together? Yes. And what is it that we need to do to honor ourselves and one another? And what does that work cycle and rhythm look and feel like? And it's been really interesting over the last 2 years to navigate that. And we do a lot of the things that you talk about when we actually onboard or bring in a new team member. And this is what we did for ourselves as sort of the core team to begin with, is we said, okay, what is your energy rhythm? So are you an early morning person? Are you a mid-morning person? What is your thrive cycle? What does that look like for you? When is it your brain is creative and firing on all cylinders and you want to collaborate? And when is your like recovery time? When is your recharge time? So that we can block that off on the calendar. And this is also what we do in the unveiling method. And so what you're talking about is so, so critical. But I think it starts with the individual in the sense that we have to first be aware of what those are for
Absolutely.
us.
You just got to, and you have to respect what other people have to do for themselves, you know.
Yeah. What I love though is how you are carrying this over, this understanding and this practice that you have in Fish in a Tree into the community at large within Fish in a Tree. So, what does that look like for community?
Sure. So, as far as our programming and our offerings to our community, um, you know, when planning Fish in a Tree, uh, online events or in-person programming or other offerings, we intentionally keep participant counts low. We cap our participants, at a workable number. This avoids overwhelm and burnout for our participants by creating a more intimate and manageable environment, where everyone feels comfortable and supported. Um, I include mindfulness practices in our programming to promote calm and relaxation at the beginning and end of programming, no matter what it is. Like we'll do a brief guided meditation or breath work, just to kind of make sure we're all being mindful about how we're spending our time and what we're there to do that day. These practices, they help participants manage stress, stay present, maintain emotional balance, which are, all essential for preventing burnout. I encourage participants to unmask and be their authentic selves, by fostering an environment where neurodivergent people can express themselves freely without fear of judgment. We help reduce stress and the energy drain that comes from trying to conform to like neurotypical norms. And that's a big, kind of burnout prevention method that we use. Our programs emphasize psychoeducation kind of above all else, self-awareness and self-advocacy. We provide resources and support to help people understand their neurotype, to recognize their unique needs and develop strategies to meet those needs. This knowledge, this self-knowledge, empowers them to make informed decisions about their own well-being, and to help them avoid whatever burnout looks like for them. And then we definitely emphasize the importance of self-advocacy so that all of our community members can, very confidently ask for what they need from others to thrive. So by teaching, the people that are in our community how to communicate their needs effectively, we help them create environments for themselves that are supportive and accommodating, which also helps prevent burnout. So I try to work, a lot of what I do for myself on the daily into what the team does collectively, and then also into the community and the work that we do in the community, to really educate and help others, set themselves up for, a future without burnout.
Absolutely. And that is so beautiful. I love that that is the path that you took, the journey to this. Bridgette, what is community at Fish in a Tree? What does community mean at Fish in a Tree?
Community often means to people, gatherings and feeling, like you're part of a entity that's larger than yourself, and it is those things. But at Fish in a Tree, community really means being truly heard and truly seen by others, and a collective understanding of the internal experiences of neurodivergence, within our community and between community members. So, it's the collective aha moment, the collective like, oh, I understand myself better. I understand other people better. And now that I have that understanding, I want to, do things out in the world with others who also have that understanding that we've arrived at collectively. So community, for Fish in a Tree, is very much a cohort kind of experience. We've come together at a similar time. We've had similar life experiences that we didn't quite understand. We're coming to this self-knowledge kind of collectively, and out of that has grown an intimacy with the people we've discovered this about ourselves with. And so we're constantly building cohorts, and kind of with the kind of intimate nature of our programming, it kind of naturally lends itself to creating little cohorts of people coming together and kind of gaining a greater understanding of themselves together. And then they tend to kind of stay together as a small group and go through other programming together. So it's fun. It's like having tiny little graduation classes, kind of moving through our various programming and doing things together, which is beautiful. I think, autism and other neurodivergence can be such an isolating internal experience, that when you find similar others who are on the same journey of self-discovery as you, I think it's very natural for you to connect to, people in the group and maintain relationships with them. And this doesn't look like, a resource fair that 1,000 people go to, which is kind of what locally, people try to push kind of on the autistic community, is like, oh, we have this big event, everybody come. And it's like, that's not what community looks like for us, And so Fish in a Tree very much in person and virtually tries to be a platform that really promotes what autistic community looks like, which is not 1,000, similar people hanging out. It's like 5 really intimately connected people, experiencing things together collectively. And kind of that is more our idea of community. And collectively as a whole, it's a larger community, but really the way it's experienced, at least through Fish in a Tree programming, is like on a more intimate level.
Oh, I love that so much. And everything that Fish in a Tree does just sparks my joy so much. So, Bridgette, would you share with everyone how they can connect with you and Fish in a Tree and look at the beautiful programming that you offer for community and get plugged in? Join one of these cohorts at Fish in a Tree.
Sure. So our website is www.fishinatreenola, which is NOLA.org. On the website, you can see all of our programmatic offerings, and you can sign up for things. The website itself is going through a bit of an overhaul, so new pages and new features are being added all the time. So come and grow with us. But all the programming is up, and new programming is added all the time as well. You can follow us on Instagram at Fish in a Tree. We have a Facebook page, Fish in a Tree. But the website is really where it's at, to be honest with you. My email address, if you want to reach out to me directly, is Bridgette, BRIDGETTE at fishinatreenola.org.
Fantastic. And I'm going to have all of those links down in the show notes so you can connect with Bridgette Hamstead and Fish in a Tree. Get plugged in, find a place of community that feels right for you. This whole month is all around community, and it's about not a right or wrong community of this or that community. It's about finding a place where you personally feel seen, heard, and understood and show up as your full self. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing about community and burnout and your particular approach to thriving and energizing in your life, Bridgette. Is there any particular thing that you would like to leave someone with today who maybe is just coming to their awareness and their identification? What would you like them to know?
Oh gosh, let me leave you with this, because the answer to that is my love letter to recently late diagnosed autistic women is a program that we've developed called Empower Her. It's a cohort program. It's a 5-month program, and it's beautiful and life-changing. And the whole program is a cohort learning experience about all the things that you now need to know as a late diagnosed autistic woman, about the unique experience of being an autistic woman, having to do with sensory sensitivities and all the things you didn't know about yourself, but also having to do with uniquely feminine experiences like menstruation and menopause and domestic violence, in relation to your autism. And then in addition to the beautiful community that you develop in the program, in addition to all of the self-knowledge that you gain through the program, you also receive a beautiful care package of sensory items, over 15 full-size products, over $500 value for the care package. So it's really a great program. We are enrolling people now. So if you are coming to a new realization of yourself as an autistic woman, please sign up for that program. It's really it's going to be life-changing for people.
Oh, 100% life-changing indeed. And I'm so thrilled to hear you sharing that, because that's one of the things that I am so excited about coming up at Fish and a Tree. Bridgette, thank you so much for being here. And guys, be sure that you check out all of the conversations this month around community as we talk about different ways of defining it, how it shows up, and how we can create and be part of community in a way that serves and works for each of us individually and collectively. See you next time.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Beyond Chronic.